Today, we're exposing the most overrated sniper rifles in the world, and there's a very good chance one of your favorites is on it. And if you think your favorite sniper rifle doesn't belong here, wait until you hear the reason. Number 7. The Mosin Nagant M91 30PU. Ask anyone with casual knowledge of World War II sniper history, and the Mosin Nagant comes up fast. The Eastern Front, the Soviet Union, names like Zaitsev and Pielintsev, hundreds of confirmed kills, a rifle that helped hold Stalingrad. All of that is real. None of it is in dispute. But here's what that story actually is, and this is the first "this isn't what you think" moment on this list. The story of the Mosin Nagant as a legendary sniper rifle is not a story about the rifle. It's a story about the Soviet sniper program, about a military that trained marksmen with an intensity that bordered on industrial, selecting candidates rigorously, drilling them relentlessly, deploying them as psychological weapons as much as tactical ones. The Red Army understood snipers as a force multiplier in a way that most armies of the era did not. The Mosin Nagant M91 30 was the vehicle for that program, not the source of it. The rifle itself was a 19th century design, literally. The original Mosin Nagant was adopted in 1891. The M91 30 was a refinement, not a reinvention. The action is slow by modern standards. The trigger, by most accounts from the era, was functional at best. The PU's spout mounting system was inconsistent enough that re-zeroing was a real operational concern in field conditions. Soviet snipers produced extraordinary results because they were extraordinarily trained, extraordinarily motivated, and because they operated in an environment where sniping was genuinely valued at the command level. Zaitsev's confirmed kill count is real. His skills were real. But Zaitsev with a contemporary German precision rifle would have been at least as lethal, and probably more so. The Mosin Nagant earned its place in history. Vasily Zaitsev deserved every word written about him, but the rifle got credit that belonged to the people carrying it, and that distinction matters. What's coming at number 6 does the same thing, but with a far more modern platform and a fan base that is considerably less interested in nuance.
Number 6. The Dragunov SVD. The Dragunov SVD is one of the most recognizable firearms on Earth. That distinctive silhouette, the skeletal stock, the long barrel, the side-mounted optic is instantly associated with Cold War military power, with Eastern Bloc doctrine, with the aesthetic of Soviet precision. It has been in continuous military service since 1963. It has been used in more conflicts than most people can name. It is still being produced, still being issued, still appearing on battlefields in 2024. And here's where the reputation gets complicated. The SVD was not designed to be a sniper rifle, not in the Western precision tradition, not in the sense that most people use that word when they talk about this weapon. The Soviets were explicit about this. The SVD was developed to fill the role of a squad support weapon, what modern doctrine would call a designated marksman rifle. Its purpose was to extend the effective engagement range of an infantry squad, to bridge the gap between the standard AK's practical range limit and the distances at which the squad might need to engage. The intended engagement range was roughly 600 to 800 meters under field conditions. That is a legitimate, valuable, well-conceived role. The SVD fills it competently. But somewhere in the journey from Soviet military doctrine to Western military analysis to internet firearms culture, the SVD became something else. It became a precision sniper system, a long-range capability, the Soviet answer to Western bolt-action platforms. It was never that. The semi-automatic action introduces variables that dedicated precision shooters spend enormous effort trying to eliminate. The trigger was designed for field use, reliable, durable, serviceable, not for the kind of consistent pull weight that precision shooting demands. The original PSO-1 optic was fixed at 4x magnification, 4 times for a rifle that was supposedly competing with systems optimized for 1,000 meters and beyond. The SVD is a genuine Cold War innovation that changed how infantry units thought about range. It is also one of the most frequently misidentified weapons in online firearms discussion, consistently called what it was never designed to be. The next rifle on this list has a different kind of identity problem. This one became famous for all the right reasons, and then got frozen in time while the world moved on. Number 5. The Steyr SSG69. Some rifles earn their reputation and then age gracefully. Others earn their reputation and then get carried forward by institutional momentum long past the point where that reputation is still current. The SSG69 is the second type. When it arrived in 1969, the year is literally in the designation, it was a serious achievement. Austrian engineering, a smooth, reliable action, a rotary magazine that was innovated for its era. Accuracy that held up to professional scrutiny. It was adopted by Austrian military and police forces, then spread to special operations units across Europe and beyond. For roughly a decade, it was a legitimate benchmark. The problem with benchmarks is that other people keep building. By the mid-1980s, the precision rifle world was accelerating. Iron accuracy was developing what would become the AW series. Macmillan was producing stocks that fundamentally changed how bolt-action rifles could be bedded and configured. Trigger technology was advancing. The concept of a modular, configurable, mission-adaptable sniper system was emerging. The SSG69's architecture couldn't fully follow. The stock design limited aftermarket options. The trigger, good for 1969, couldn't match what purpose-built precision triggers were delivering a decade later. The rifle that had been a benchmark became a legacy platform, and legacy platforms have a way of outlasting their optimal service window when budgets are tight and procurement cycles are slow. Units across Europe held on to SSG69s through the 1990s, and in some cases well beyond. Every year it stayed in service past its competitive window was another year the reputation was being maintained by inertia rather than performance. This is overrated in its quietest form. Not loud mythology, not Hollywood glamour, just a good rifle the time passed and nobody wanted to officially admit it. Quick break! Our channel is new and is on its way to 1,000 subs. Become a part of this journey by subscribing and being one of the first 1,000 subscribers of this channel. What's coming next is louder, much louder. We're entering the top 4, and this is where the fan bases start showing up. Number 4. The M24 Sniper Weapon System. For a large portion of its service life, the M24 was the United States Army's primary sniper rifle, adopted in 1988, built on the Remington 700 long-action, designed to bring a dedicated, purpose-built precision capability to Army snipers who had been making do with converted service rifles for too long. In that context, for that era, it was a genuine improvement. The accuracy was real. The reliability was real. The logistical support, once the system was established, was real. So why is it here? One word: Afghanistan. The terrain of eastern Afghanistan presented snipers with engagement distances that regularly exceeded 800 to 1,000 meters. Mountain valleys, elevated positions, open ground. Conditions that didn't care what the Army's procurement documents said about effective range. And the M24, chambered in 7.62 by 51 mm NATO, had a practical engagement ceiling that started becoming a liability in exactly those conditions. After-action reports, which are now partially available in the public record, documented U.S. Army snipers being outranged by insurgents using older Soviet-pattern weapons in 7.62 by 54R. Rifles that were technologically behind the M24 in almost every measurable way were winning the range equation in specific terrain because the cartridge physics favored them at distance. This is not a failure of the rifle. The M24 performed exactly as designed. The failure was procurement, a decision made in the 1980s that didn't anticipate the operational environment of 20 years later. But that distinction doesn't change the outcome. The most decorated army in the world deployed its primary sniper system into a conflict where terrain routinely negated its key advantage. And when they eventually pursued the 338 Lapua upgrade, the M24A3 program, it came slowly, partially, and after the lesson had already been learned the hard way. The M24's reputation is built on what it was designed to do. The gaps in that reputation are built on where it was actually used. And if you think that's a damning case, the next 2 entries are where this list becomes genuinely uncomfortable.
because we're now in the territory of rifles that didn't just have operational limitations, they had legendary reputations built almost entirely on things that had nothing to do with field performance. Here's where it gets serious.
Number 3. The Barrett M82/M107. Fair warning, this section is going to generate comments. We know that, and that's fine, because the argument is worth having. The Barrett M82 is one of the most iconic firearms ever manufactured, a .50 BMG semi-automatic anti-material rifle. It can defeat light armor. It can disable radar systems in parked aircraft. At ranges most rifles can't even reach, it can put rounds on target with consistency. Ronnie Barrett built something genuinely remarkable, and the design's longevity, still in production, still in service, is proof that it solved real problems. So understand what's being said here. The Barrett is not a bad weapon. It is, however, one of the most systematically misrepresented weapons in modern firearms culture. And the misrepresentation happened in plain sight. Here's the thing nobody talks about. The M82 is an anti-material rifle. That is its designed purpose. The M is for materiel. Defeating equipment, disrupting infrastructure, denying enemy use of vehicles, crew-served weapons, communications equipment, stored ordnance. The doctrine around it was never primarily about personnel interdiction at extreme range. But that's not how culture absorbed it. Gaming turned it into the ultimate sniper tool. Cinema put it in the hands of protagonists taking impossible human targets at impossible ranges. Every firearms-adjacent content platform on the internet treats it as the apex of sniper capability. Ask a teenager which rifle is the best sniper gun in the world, and a large percentage will say Barrett. Meanwhile, actual military snipers doing personnel interdiction work at the distances the Barrett is celebrated for are overwhelmingly using lighter, more precise bolt-action platforms. The 338 Lapua and 300 Norma Magnum communities exist precisely because the requirements of precision fire on human-sized targets at range are different from the requirements of defeating engine blocks. The M82 weighs approximately 30 pounds unloaded. An operational loadout with optics, suppressor, and ammunition turns that into a number that changes how far and how fast a sniper team can move. In any scenario requiring sustained movement, the Barrett's weight profile is a serious operational consideration. And the semi-automatic action, one of its selling points, introduces variables that bolt gun users spend considerable energy eliminating. Precision and repeatability at the absolute edge of capability are harder to achieve in a gas-operated platform, and the Barrett was never optimized for that kind of edge case precision. The Barrett M82 is a purpose-built tool that cultural forces turned into a universal symbol. The disconnect between what it's celebrated for and what it was actually designed to do is almost complete. Here's what makes this especially complicated. The Barrett is a genuine icon. Ronnie Barrett built it in his shop with his own hands and eventually forced the U.S. military to pay attention. That story is real and it's remarkable. The rifle has genuine operational value. Number 2 is a rifle that the tactical and counterterrorism world treated as royalty, at a price that demanded royalty-level results. And the results, when examined honestly, told a different story. And number 1, the most anticipated, the most argued about, the one this entire video has been building toward, is a rifle that may represent the single largest gap between cultural reputation and operational reality in the history of the precision rifle world. Number 2 first, because this one earns its ranking. Number 2, the Heckler & Koch PSG-1. To understand why the PSG-1 is on this list, you have to understand what it was built for and what it was never designed to be. Germany, 1972, the Munich Olympics. 11 Israeli athletes murdered in one of the most catastrophic hostage rescue failures in modern history. The West German government looked at that outcome, looked at its law enforcement capabilities, and made a decision. This would never happen again, not for lack of equipment. The PSG-1 was the result, a semi-automatic precision rifle built specifically for counterterrorism and hostage rescue scenarios. The requirements were clear: accuracy at ranges relevant to those scenarios, fast follow-up shots without bolt manipulation, robust reliability, and a trigger so refined that a trained operator could place a shot within a very small margin of error under significant psychological stress. On those terms, the PSG-1 delivered.
The trigger was exceptional. The out-of-box accuracy was extraordinary for a semi-automatic platform of its era. The engineering was meticulous. And then the mythology took over. The PSG-1 became the prestige rifle of the tactical world, expensive enough to signal seriousness, distinctive enough to be recognized. Film and television put it in the hands of elite operators until its profile became synonymous with professional precision. For a certain generation of military and law enforcement enthusiasts, the PSG-1 was what a serious sniper rifle looked like. Here's what the spec sheet didn't put on the poster. The PSG-1 weighed close to 8 kilograms, roughly 17.5 pounds with the standard optic. For a rifle optimized for static urban positions, that's manageable. The moment you move it into any other operational context, that weight starts making choices for you. The rifle was not designed for field conditions. The tolerances that produced exceptional accuracy in a controlled environment also made the PSG-1 more sensitive to the kind of abuse that military field use inflicts on equipment. The .308 Winchester chambering was entirely appropriate for the hostage rescue role it was designed for. Ranges rarely exceeded 100 meters, and the cartridge was well suited to that window. But the reputation that accumulated around the PSG-1 implied capability at ranges that exceeded its optimal envelope. And then there's the price. At various points in its production life, the PSG-1 cost more per unit than multiple competing platforms combined. The question that number raises is whether the performance delta, at any range, under any conditions, justified the premium over what purpose-built bolt-action systems could deliver for less than half the cost. For most honest assessments, it doesn't. The PSG-1 was a masterpiece designed for a very specific job in a very specific context at a very specific moment in counterterrorism history. The world it was built for, static positions, controlled environments, ranges measured in tens of meters, was a real world. The rifle served it well. The world it came to represent in culture, universal tactical precision, the ultimate police and military sniper tool, was a different world entirely. One it was never engineered to inhabit. And yet the reputation persisted. Carried forward by cost, by aesthetics, by the machinery of tactical mythology that turns expensive and distinctive into capable and superior. Now, this is the moment the video has been building toward. Number 1.
The CheyTac M200 intervention. Let's establish something clearly right at the start, because this entry deserves to be treated with the seriousness it's challenging. The CheyTac intervention is a real achievement. The .408 CheyTac cartridge was developed with genuine ballistic engineering behind it. The proprietary ballistic solver that CheyTac incorporated into the system, the LRTS, the long-range target system, was a serious attempt to solve the atmospheric variable problem that limits extreme long-range precision. In controlled testing under favorable conditions, the system produces results that are genuinely impressive. This needs to be said clearly, because the argument that follows isn't about dismissing the engineering, it's about what happened to the rifle's reputation, and why that reputation and the operational record are two almost completely separate things. Here's the first fact that surprises people. Major military adoption of the CheyTac intervention has been minimal, remarkably minimal. For a rifle that internet culture treats as the pinnacle of long-range precision, the best there is, the rifle that renders everything else obsolete, the number of significant military forces that have adopted it as a primary or secondary sniper system is a very short list. Special operations units that evaluated it produced results that were at best mixed, at worst quietly disappointing enough that they went elsewhere. Why? Start with the cartridge. The .408 CheyTac is an exceptional round. It is also an exotic round, manufactured by a limited number of producers, not integrated into any major military logistics chain. In the laboratory of controlled testing, exotic is interesting. In the field, exotic is a liability. Modern military snipers operate inside logistics systems, and a rifle that requires a supply chain of its own is a rifle that creates problems the mission doesn't need. At ranges where the CheyTac's capability genuinely separates from competitors, atmospheric variables, wind reading, mirage, and the real-time reading of conditions introduce uncertainties that no ballistic computer fully eliminates. The edge cases where the intervention theoretically outperforms alternatives require conditions that don't consistently exist in operational environments.
And here's the deepest part of this argument, the part that makes it land hardest. While the CheyTac was building a cultural empire, other cartridges were quietly closing the gap. The .338 Lapua Magnum, already proven across multiple conflicts, had platforms that were lighter, better logistically integrated, and capable of the performance envelope that most long-range sniper missions actually require. The .300 Norma Magnum emerged as a serious competitor and achieved adoption rates in special operations communities that the CheyTac could not match. 7 rifles, 7 reputations, and 1 consistent thread running through all of them. That's not an insult to the rifles, it's an indictment of how we decide what to believe. Now, which entry did we get wrong? Which rifle deserved to be on this list and wasn't? And which one are you going to defend in the comments regardless of what was just said? That's what the section below is for. Comment which rifle amazed you the most, or give me suggestion for future videos. Your feedback matters. If you like this breakdown, you'll also like this video shown on your screen. Make sure to check it out. Comment which rifle amazed you the most, or give me suggestion for future videos. Your feedback matters.